Tonight, burn them to ashes. Religious leaders unite in challenging the president to show evidence of his opposition to the LGBTQI agenda they suspect to be behind the comprehensive sexual agenda.
If you say it is not going to happen under your presidency, then show us the destruction of the manual. Where are those documents? We want to see them burnt to ashes. If the president says it's not going to happen, then what are you keeping the books for?
Plus, we'll hear from the two main political parties tonight as the religious leaders demand that they include their clear policy on the matter in their manifestos for the 2020 elections.
We are telling all political parties that they should include in their manifestos for the 2020 elections their policy response to this whole LGBT phenomenon.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. Gasem, the nation builder, and Antate Furniture, designed for life. Burn them to ashes. A challenge to President Akufo-Addo tonight from religious leaders who are demanding evidence of his opposition to the LGBTQI agenda. They insist the president must guarantee the destruction of all guidelines and manuals developed so far on the comprehensive sexuality education, or CSE, which they insist includes material designed to promote the gay and lesbian agenda. The president this past weekend was emphatic. He will not allow any item in the education curriculum that is an affront to our values and culture. It followed massive public backlash when it emerged that the Ghana Education Service had developed a guideline on CSE. Well, today at the joint press conference of the Christian Council, the Scripture Union, the Coalition of Muslim Organizations, and others under the umbrella of the National Coalition for Proper Human and Sexual Rights and Family Values, the leaders challenged the president to go beyond the verbal assurances.
If you say it is not going to happen under your presidency, then show us the destruction of the manual, because it's been produced. They have copies. Number two, the curriculum program for class 4 to class 6 has been produced, and it says that I think item number 9 for class 4 and class 5 is CSE. Item number 1 for class 6 is CSE. It came off the press September 2019. Where are those documents? We want to see them burnt to ashes. If the president says it's not going to happen, then what are you keeping the books for? Number 3, supplementary budget of the Minister of Finance. In the supplementary budget of the Minister of Finance, there's a paragraph on CSE. In other words, the Minister of Finance has gone to Parliament to say, give us money to complete this program. So if the president says it's not happening, we want to see that money allocated to something else. So it is not over by simply saying it's not happening under my presidency. We want to see action, real action. We want to see physical destruction of the documents. That's why we are following up.
Well, that is Reverend Dr. Samuel Inwona. He's a Vice Chairman, National Advisory Committee of the Scripture Union. Well, today also, they had some uncompromising demands of all the political parties contesting in the 2020 elections. Listen to Moses Famini.
The president has spoken. He has indicated that LGBT matters will never happen in Ghana. But we have been here before because Professor Mills has also spoken. The problem we notice as a coalition is that these things crop up in health, we talk about it and we leave it. They crop up in education and then we leave it. We think it is time that we have a comprehensive strategy or national response to this whole LGBT problem. And to begin with, we think political parties should not just talk. They must walk the walk. The former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, said the sure sign to see that somebody opposes apartheid, he should act against it. So we are telling all political parties and we're encouraging them that they should include in their manifestos for the 2020 elections their policy response to this whole LGBT phenomenon. We'll demand from them.
All right. Do you think the president's assurance is not enough?
No, we think the president has given the broad sweep. He holds executive power. He has told us what he believes and what his government believes in, but we want to see it in print. And we are going to, on a consistent basis, on the national dialogue level and also from the individual political party level, demand that they tell Ghanaians what will be their response.
So, what is the policy position of the two main political parties on the issue, and will they accede to the demands, as we've just heard there? Yabo Abiyasamwa is the communications director of the New Patriotic Party, the governing party. Mr. Abiyasamwa, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you very much, Evans.
Also joining me right now is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Peter Tokuno. Peter Tokuno, thank you for your time also on Top Story.
You're welcome, Ivan.
Mr. Barasa, let me start with you. You just heard the religious leaders. It's a coalition that came together today, Christian Council and others, including the Muslim community. Their demand was simple, that include this in a clear policy in your manifesto 2020. What is that policy position of your party, and will it be in your 2020 manifesto?
Thank you very much, Evans. Once again, let me greet the people of Ghana on your shows. What I listen to. Evans, I am not in a position now to declare my party's policy position, because obviously these meetings and these press conferences were held today, and the party has decision-making structures. What I am capable of saying, and I am very thrilled to say, is that this is very passionate engagement. This is what the people of Ghana deserve. This is what the people of Ghana must see, that the people on whose behalf governance is in essence a service to them from a leadership are engaging the leadership so passionately and vigorously. That's one. Two is sadness that the president's word cannot be taken for what it is. The president is the number one policy reservoir in this country, in the sense that if he leaves his desk to us, it means he's conclusively decided that it's it. If he doesn't approve, it will not leave his desk. And this president has passionately said it openly. He's a Christian. He believes in his upbringing in Ghana. He's a Ghanaian to the core. And he says, this will not happen. I would have been so happy if, rather than engaging him in public and giving out ultimata, this conversation would have gone on with him, the way he sought to converse with the religious leaders on the day he declared this. In any event, policy making is not an event, it's a process. And that process demands that all parties are involved, especially direct interest groups. And when it comes to religion and matters of sexual predilection in religion, everybody in Ghana is a stakeholder. Everybody in Ghana is a stakeholder. It's not just a religious leadership. It's everybody, every parent, every child, every single Ghanaian is a stakeholder. And therefore, I believe this conversation must be conducted in a process where we arrive together at conclusions that advance our Ghanaianness.
Mr. Bobesama, their point is a simple one. It's not a case of they don't trust the president. They says, yes, we've had you, but their point is that back what you said, your assurance to us with action, because guidelines indeed, they say, have been developed. Some monies have been spent on this, as the finance minister, they point out, went to parliament to indicate. So they say, show the evidence by burning all these other documents and guidelines and documents that have been developed on this.
Hard drives, Evans, you don't trust the president, and yet you are members of the processes which conclude our curricula. So assuming, sadly, without accepting that you don't trust the president to that extent, then there are processes through which these things will never happen. Because one, the president is not going to initiate it from his policy sources. And therefore, two, it will not issue from his premises to your premises where you consider it. Because three, the religious bodies are all members of NACA. And NACA is the ultimate place where the curricula is put together.
But is it too much for the religious leaders to ask that what you've said in word, put it in print, as Moses Formini eloquently put it?
I am saying it is painful when there is that level of distrust, when you have a president who comes out openly, and therefore it deserves mutual trust that you engage the president in a forum where he is also able to engage you back. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying policy making is a process. That manifestos are built over time. This year's manifesto, the manifesto we are going to use to fight next year, is going to be a cumulative appreciation of what we've experienced in government over the past 4 years as we are going to the next election, lessons learned, and what we could have done better previously. The manifesto style could even change.
So your point is, just for clarity, you cannot make that declaration and policy accessions and an indication of whether it's going to be in the manifesto or not as of today.
My point is that I can't make it today in the way they've made their claims out. My point is that it is fair that they engage. It is fair that they engage the policymakers and hammer out these matters. Let
me bring in Peter Tokuno. Mr. Tokuno, your party today issued a statement calling the president's pronouncements on the CSC insincere, asking public not to fall for the president's charade. Now the religious leaders want a clear and unequivocal policy position on the LGBTQ agenda. What is the NDC policy position on this?
First of all, Evans, it is clear that the MPP, are confused on this matter. And what Wabia Samoa has said this evening goes to affirm the assertion that we made, that the president and his team are being insincere with the people of this country as far as this LGBT CSC education policy is concerned. The fact of the matter is that we have heard the Minister of Education earlier on around 1st February, commending the international partners for their collaboration and the support they have offered.
Mr. Tokuno, I know you want to go there, but if you can address my direct question, I'll be very grateful. Coming from what we've just heard from the press conference,
I'm going to address that, but it is very surprising and bizarre that as at now, a ruling government that is running such a program that intends to, bring in an educational program that would certainly infuse, LGBT into our young people, and we are talking about it, and still they cannot express their position. Our position on LGBT and this comprehensive sexual education has been made long time. Our former president, they have been explicit. President Mahama has been explicit. In the statement issued by my boss this afternoon, we have been very explicit. What is causing the MPP not to be able to be explicit on their position on LGBT is because their position on LGBT is that they are...
Mr. Tokuno, what is the NDC's policy position on the subject as of now?
Our policy position is that we will not, and we are not going to allow this to mutilate our cultural and moral standards that we have in this country, and we have made it very, very clear. Now what is curious is that you have a president
and a second question, Mr. Tokuno, my second question they just asked today is it's not just a second, it's not good enough to say that, but they want it in your manifesto. Will it be in your manifesto for 2020?
No, we are now preparing manifesto, but at least we've made our position very clear, and that is what we are talking about. Now we are in the process of doing manifestos. We are speaking to policy. The discussion is up for decision making, and we are saying that we are against it. What is the president doing? They have the reins of power. They are controlling the affairs of state. They have the resources. They control the resources. They make the decisions. According to them, they have not decided on anything like that. But what is curious is that when you listen to the president clearly, he spoke in a local language, and he never mentioned anything about CSC. He never mentioned anything about LGBT. He never talked about homosexuality. He was talking about something in the realm of, some general things that it will not be good for the country. He will not allow it to happen. He never mentioned this specifically. And that has been exposed clearly by Wabia Samoa this evening. They are unable to speak to the real policy issues of LGBT and comprehensive sexuality education. And that is very scary. And You know the reason. The reason is simple, because they have locked themselves in an agreement which they have signed and collected money to implement this thing certainly in Ghana, and that is the problem. And that is why they are unable to be explicit
in the
on
conversations you say you're having in the development of your manifesto. Has this? Well, this is a very live issue now. Has this matter featured in the conversations in finalizing or developing your manifesto?
Not only has it featured in discussions, we have made public statements. Our flag bearer has made public statements denouncing and speaking to it directly that it is not going to happen under the watch of the NDC. Not current, not future. It is never going to happen. President Mills has spoken about it. President Mahama himself spoke about it in the past. What has President Akufo-Addo said about LGBT?
What he said
that is bound to happen.
No, what he said over the weekend was that he will not allow anything that is an affront to our values in our curriculum.
But he never spoke about LGBT. He never spoke about comprehensive sexuality education. Such a topical matter, one would expect that if the president is speaking to it, he will speak in clear terms, succinct terms, so that all of us will understand and follow the position of the president.
Yeah.
But clearly the president is having something to hide. The president is unable to be honest with the people of this country. And in his usual style, he covers the issues up and tries to blur blur the issues so that people will get confused.
I want to say a big thank you to Peter Tokuno. That's the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC there. On the line with me right now is Moses Famini, who of course represents the umbrella group that today addressed a press conference together, the National Coalition for Proper Human and Sexual Rights and Family Values. They had done this together with the Christian Council, Scripture Union and other religious groups whose leaders today penned their signature to that collective statement. Mr. Swarman, you've heard the two political parties on this particular issue. You make the direct call for them to include this a policy position in their manifestos. You've heard the two main parties. Your reaction?
Well, just 2 quick points, Evans. First of all, the coalition includes all the parties that you've talked about. The Christian group, then the Muslim groups, and then our traditional rulers. So it's a tripartite coalition. And when we speak for all of them. And today was the first in a series of press briefings. Secondly, there was a point which was made during the discussion about burning of material. To be honest with you, that was the specific view of Dr. Ongwena. He's an individual, and he just raised that point. That is not the position of the coalition. As of now, we are not talking about burning anything. We are talking about engaging and ensuring that the right things are done. So let me put that in perspective.
Just on that point, I had my reporter ask. The president has spoken. Is it that you don't trust? But you said yes, he's spoken, but you want it in print. The NPP director of communication says he finds that sad that you don't. It seems like you don't trust the president. His word is not good enough.
Well, I think that we actually invited all the political parties, and if he had been there, I think Yao's point is that it should be a process, and actually that is what the coalition was talking about. We want to engage the political parties, give them the information, and help them in the process of arriving at a conclusion. So it's not a one-off thing, all right? So we agree on the process of arriving at what should be in the manifesto. Indeed, on the 29th, we are starting the national policy dialogue on all of this, and that will arrive at the conclusion. So it has nothing to do with trusting the president. Indeed, if you had played all my interview, you would have seen that I said the president has given a broad sweep, but we've got to follow up. I mean, that is his broad statement, but we'll need to move from there because it's not the first time we've heard presidents make that statement. So what is Ghana's...
So you trust the president when he says he will allow anything that will be an affront to our values. You trust the president.
But you see nothing, but then there are other things that, for example, how do we relate with international agencies like PPAG who have produced a 400-page material?
You see, because of the doubt around the trust question and MPP's position, it would be good to give me a clear yes or no to this. You trust the president when he says what he said over the weekend?
Definitely. We know the president. I know him. And I kept on saying that I have implicit faith in his capacity to respond to this well, even before he spoke. Because, look, when a president comes to power with the word of God that says that
the battle is the Lord. That's not a very easy statement to make. And he's very believable. When he says these things, he means them. I trust him totally on this matter. But the truth is that when you're running a government, there are other people with you, and it is a matter of getting a policy developed to reflect all the other aspects. Because it's not just, it's not going to happen. But the legal issues of human rights, is it true or not? The scientific issues. What is the scientific position of the Ghana Psychology Council and the Ghana Medical and Dental Association on the matter? The health issues in respect of the HIV prevalence and the AIDS Commission. So there are a whole range of issues that have to be discussed so the country can develop what we call a comprehensive national and pan-African response to the whole LGBT agenda. Because when it pops up in education, we shout and it's over. When it pops, no, we can't do that. We must have a consistent policy that deals with the whole matter. That is what we were driving at. And as for the manifesto matter, that's fine, because bottom line, we give them the power to run this country. So they must tell us at the end of the day what they will do, their policy responses. And we are saying we're going to guide the conversation. So y'all shouldn't be too worried. Indeed, that is exactly what we want. We will engage the political parties, we'll give them information, we'll inform them. So at the end of the day, they can arrive at the right conclusions. It has nothing to do with doubting the president. Indeed, we're going to engage the president. We're going to see him next week. We've seen the Speaker of Parliament. We're in the process of engaging not only him, but the other former presidents to invite them to the national dialogue. So it's all about engagement. It has nothing to do with compulsion.
Mr. Ababa is with me on the line. Mr. Ababa, Moses Famani, who made the point about, yes, I've heard the president, but he has to put it in print. He says, I trust the president wholeheartedly, but this has to be in policy, and they will engage. Your reaction?
Super. I'm very, very impressed with Fuwa Mwane's position now that I'm hearing him. First of all, if the parties were invited to the dialogue and were not there, or the press conference they were not there, I apologize. If it had come to my notice earlier, I would have been there. So that maybe explains why we didn't appreciate each other on the question of process. But secondly, I am very happy that he appreciates that it's a process and that everybody has to be engaged. Because I agree with him. We have to have a wider policy approach and national consensus on dealing with an international situation in a global policy environment. It is so important, but it is not something that can be achieved by an ultimatum in a day. So I'm happy. I am very happy listening to him that what they have started is a process-based situation and that we can all get on board and come to a point where we will feel Ghanaian about our conclusions.
I'm sure you also listened to the Deputy General Secretary. He makes a point.
Unfortunately, that's when my line drops.
Yes. I can repeat it. His point was a simple one. His point is about the categorical position of the president and your party on the subject. He says so far you and the president, the party and the president have lacked that clarity on the matter. When the president spoke over the weekend, he says the president never once mentioned comprehensive sexuality education. He was talking broadly, and that's up until now. There hasn't been any clear categorical pronouncement against the LGBTQI agenda and CSC. What's your response to that?
What could have been more comprehensive and explicit than what the president said?
But the president never mentioned directly the controversial subject of LGBTQ.
CSE, from what I have read, is not about LGBT. There's an LGBT and there's a CSC, and you can then determine whether they interlock or otherwise. But the president was explicit that he would not allow our children to be indoctrinated with perversity.
And what is that perversity? Why don't you mention it by name?
Yeah, but the president spoke. So what's so difficult about the president speaking? I just heard Amwani saying that he trusts the president. Has it been introduced? Is it being taught in our schools? School children have been in school since September. Has anybody been taught anything about LGBT?
There's one concept that is triggering and causing the controversy. It is the concept of what people believe to be the alien LGBT agenda, which they believe to be behind the agenda to push through the CSC. The question, the pool is you have to mention that by name. That's what the NDC is saying, that you haven't.
There is also one situation that the president mentioned that everybody seems to conveniently forget. That the president said that this policy matter landed before his cabinet endorsed from 2015, and that his cabinet rejected it and asked that it be infused with the necessary Ghanaianness. I think that's important. That point is being overlooked, and it is very important that before the hula baloo, the president had already rejected it, because ultimately the president is responsible for what happens in his cabinet. The president had rejected this. He had rejected the guidelines. He had rejected anything to do with what you choose to see it as, whether it's CSE minus LGBT or it's LGBT infused with CSE or LGBT alone or it's a conspiracy or otherwise. The president tells us that he rejected it before his cabinet and asked that it be sent back and the right thing done. The right thing being something that conforms to Ghanaian norms, something that believes in Ghanaian sensitivities. And that is what the president did.
Moses Famani, very briefly, what's next now?
Well, Evans, quickly, the political venom is one thing we want to suck out of it. That's why we're facilitating the dialogue, because political equalization has oftentimes hurt this country. So I hope we can take it out. I know the politicians will always want to take advantage, but for us as a coalition, we want to bring everybody on board to ensure that moving forward, the dialogue series will start. Hopefully we can get the vice president to give us the keynote address and bring everybody together so that we can get a policy direction. Let me assure you that you see, CSE comes from us a direction, and when we meet, we will give the government and the political party information for them to know that this is where it is coming from. Because without an in-depth knowledge on the matter, you might be swaying one way or the other. But Ghana can come together and indicate that as far as we are concerned, all these LGBT matters at best are psychosocial problems with medical, psychological, and psychiatric solutions, a five-fold solution that can make sure that people who are in that problem can be handled without any violence.
I'm grateful that you joined us, Moses Famani. Babia Samayana, you also had the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Peter Otokuno. This is Top Story.
Ma, please give me your phone. Let me make a quick call.
So you are still on